"Sir, the plane is on fire," said the boy in the hangar. The pilot mocked him until Tyler Johnson felt his heart beating so hard it felt like it would jump out of his mouth. His hands trembled as he tried to find the right words, but all he could do was desperately point at the dark smoke coming from the plane's engine. "Sir, the plane is on fire," shouted the boy, his voice echoing through the empty hangar. The pilot turned slowly, his sunglasses hiding any expression in his eyes. A mocking smile formed on his lips as he crossed his arms over his chest, his impeccable uniform contrasting with the boy's simple clothes. "On fire?" he repeated, his voice full of sarcasm. "Kid, do you know what fuel vapor is? Of course you don't. This is adult stuff, professional stuff. Go back to your mother and let the people who know what they're doing work." "But sir, I know what I'm seeing. That smoke isn't normal. It's very dark and—" "Enough!" The pilot raised his hand, cutting off the boy's words. "Security. Get this kid out of here before he causes any trouble." Tyler felt a tightness in his chest as the security guard approached. He was 12 years old and spent every afternoon at that regional airport in Greenfield, in upstate New York, watching every movement, every procedure, every detail. His grandfather, Walter Johnson, had been the best aviation mechanic at that small airline for over 30 years. And it was Walter himself who had taught him to recognize the signs of danger that many ignored. "Please, just look at the smoke," insisted Tyler, resisting a little as the security guard took him by the arm. "My grandfather taught me I know when something is wrong. Your grandfather—" The pilot let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, you're the grandson of that old grumbler who was always causing trouble? Now I understand where all this nonsense comes from. The old man filled your head with stories, kid. That man was let go because he couldn't keep up with the new times. He kept inventing problems where there were none." The words hit Tyler like a punch. He thought of his grandfather, of how Walter had come home 3 months ago with red eyes, trying to hide the tears as he told them he had been let go. The old mechanic had questioned the new maintenance procedures, had pointed out flaws in the reports, had insisted that safety was being compromised, and for that he was called outdated, paranoid, a problem. "My grandfather saved lives for years." Tyler felt the anger rising in his throat. "He knows these planes better than anyone here. New kid, past tense. Now get out of here before I call your mother and tell her you're interfering with the adults' work." The security guard, a middle-aged man named Paul, pulled Tyler more firmly. The boy cast one last desperate look at the engine, seeing the smoke become even thicker. His stomach churned with a terrible premonition. Outside, leaning against the fence that marked the maintenance area, Tyler couldn't stop thinking about that smoke. It wasn't normal. It wasn't vapor. He had seen vapor hundreds of times. He knew exactly how it behaved. This was different, dangerous. And the worst part was that he knew which plane it was. He even knew the aircraft number by heart. It was Flight 237, scheduled to take off in less than an hour for Chicago, 40 passengers on board, and among them was his mother, Amanda Johnson, who had worked as a flight attendant for 15 years. The boy felt his legs go weak. His mother was scheduled for that flight. She herself had commented that morning while making coffee that it would be a busy day because she had 2 flights in a row. The first one would be 237. Tyler looked around, searching for someone who could help. The regional airport was small, with just 3 hangars and a modest control tower. Most of the people who worked there were known to the Johnson family, but who would believe a 12-year-old boy against the word of an experienced pilot? His eyes fixed on the hangar window. From there he could see the plane perfectly, and more importantly, he saw the smoke increasing. He had no time to lose. He needed to act. He needed to do something before it was too late. It was then that he remembered the maintenance room. His grandfather always kept copies of the inspection reports in a specific file. Walter was meticulous. He wrote everything down. He kept every document. He said that one day those papers would be important, that one day they would prove he was right. Tyler knew the way blindfolded. He had spent countless afternoons in that room, sitting in a corner while his grandfather worked. He checked that no one was looking and ran along the side of the hangar, entering through a service door he knew was always unlocked. The maintenance room smelled of oil and metal, a smell that was comforting to Tyler because it reminded him of his grandfather. The walls were covered with metal cabinets, clipboards hanging, tools organized with military precision. But Walter no longer worked there. His replacement was a young man named Brian Wilson, who had taken over the position 3 months ago. Tyler went straight to the file cabinet. His fingers trembled as he searched for the folder for Flight 237. When he finally found it, his heart raced. The latest inspection report was there, dated just 2 days ago, signed by Brian Wilson, approved for flight. But there was something strange. Tyler took the paper and held it up to the light. The numbers didn't make sense. The turbine pressure was marked as normal, but there was a small, almost illegible handwritten note in the corner. Tyler strained his eyes to read it. Check cooling system. Irregular reading. The boy felt a chill. Cooling system. Cooling. That was exactly what his grandfather had warned about before being removed. Walter had found patterns of wear in the turbines, especially in the cooling system, and had asked for them all to be replaced, but the company had said it was too expensive, that it wasn't necessary, that the old man was exaggerating. Tyler kept looking and found more reports from previous months. He quickly leafed through them and noticed a disturbing pattern. There were handwritten notes on several of them, always small observations about irregularities, but they were all approved for flight, as if someone was seeing the problems but turning a blind eye. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Suddenly, he heard voices approaching. Quickly, Tyler folded up some of the reports and stuffed them under his shirt. He ran out through the same door he had entered and hid behind a baggage cart. His heart was beating so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. It was the pilot, talking to someone on the phone as he walked toward the plane. Tyler managed to hear bits of the conversation. Yes, 40 passengers confirmed. No technical problems. We'll take off on schedule. I know. The company can't afford to lose another flight, I get it. The pilot hung up and Tyler saw him glance quickly at the turbine. For a second, a very brief one, there seemed to be a shadow of doubt on his face, but then he shook his head, as if dismissing a troubling thought, and moved on. Tyler came out from behind the cart and ran. He needed to get to the control tower. He needed to talk to someone who could stop the takeoff. He took the stairs 2 at a time, almost tripping in his hurry. When he reached the control room, he was out of breath. Please, he shouted as soon as he entered. I need to talk to someone about Flight 237. There were 3 people in the room. A woman about 50 years old was sitting in front of the monitors. An older man was analyzing papers at a desk, and a third operator was adjusting equipment. They all looked at the boy with surprise. How did you get in here, kid? Asked the older man, standing up. This is a restricted area. I know, I'm sorry, but it's urgent. The plane for Flight 237 has a problem with the turbine. I saw dark smoke coming out and... Smoke? The woman at the monitors exchanged a look with her colleagues. We just completed the pre-flight check. Everything is normal. It's not. Tyler pulled the reports from inside his shirt and held them out. Look here, there are notes about problems with the cooling system, but it was approved anyway. My grandfather always said that. Your grandfather? The older man took the papers and his expression changed. Are you Walter's grandson? Yes, sir. And he taught me to recognize when something is wrong. That smoke isn't normal, you need to... Listen here, kid. The man sighed, handing back the papers. Your grandfather was a good mechanic, but... Well, he had his quirks. He saw problems in everything. The new team is more modern, they know how to use new equipment, technology. If it's approved, it's because it's safe. But what about the notes? Tyler pointed to the papers. Someone wrote about irregularities. They're just observations, routine maintenance. The woman looked back at the monitors. Look, child, you need to leave here. This is not an area for minors. Paul, she called on the radio. There's a boy here in the tower, come get him. Tyler felt desperation take over. No one was listening. No one wanted to believe him. He looked out the tower window and saw the plane being prepared. The boarding stairs were already in position. A few passengers were starting to arrive. My mother is on that flight, he shouted, his voice cracking. Amanda Johnson, she's a flight attendant. If something happens... The woman at the monitors paused. Tyler saw something flash in her eyes, maybe a moment of doubt, maybe compassion. But then she shook her head. "Nothing is going to happen, dear. Your mother is safe. Now go before you get into serious trouble." Paul arrived at that moment, and once again, Tyler was escorted out. But this time, as he went down the tower stairs, his mind was racing frantically. He needed another plan. He needed real help. That's when he thought of Mrs. Roberts, the woman who worked at the airport coffee shop. She was about 65 and was a longtime friend of his grandfather. She always treated Tyler with affection, always listened to his stories. Maybe, just maybe, she would believe him. The boy ran to the small coffee shop located in the public area of the airport. Mrs. Roberts was cleaning the counter, her grey hair tied in a bun, her reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. When she saw Tyler run in, breathless, her face filled with worry. "Tyler! My God, boy, what happened? You're white as a sheet." "Mrs. Roberts, I need your help." Tyler leaned on the counter, trying to catch his breath. "It's about Flight 237. There's something wrong with the plane, but no one believes me." The woman's expression became serious. She took off her apron and came out from behind the counter, guiding Tyler to a table in the back, away from the other customers. "Take a deep breath and tell me everything, slowly." And Tyler told her. He talked about the smoke, the pilot who ignored him, the reports he found, the notes about irregularities, how everyone treated him as if he were just a kid making up stories. Mrs. Roberts listened in silence, her face growing more and more tense. "My grandfather was right, Mrs. Roberts." Tyler felt his eyes burn. "He always said they were cutting corners on safety, that they were putting lives at risk, and now my mother is going to be on that plane." Mrs. Roberts held the boy's hands. Her own hands were rough from work, but her touch was gentle, comforting. "Your grandfather is not a man to make things up, Tyler. Walter is the most responsible man I know. If he saw problems, it's because problems exist." She paused, thoughtful. "And you inherited that responsibility from him, that ability to see what others prefer to ignore. But what do I do? No one listens to me. Sometimes, my dear, to do the right thing, we need to take difficult actions." Mrs. Roberts looked out the coffee shop window towards the hangar. "Are you absolutely sure of what you saw?" "I am, Mrs. Roberts. I'd spend my whole life in that hangar. I've seen hundreds of planes. That smoke is different. It's dangerous." The woman nodded slowly. Then, to Tyler's surprise, she got up and went to the coffee shop's phone. She dialed a number she seemed to know by heart. "Walter? It's me, Roberts. I need you to come to the airport now. It's urgent." A pause. "Your grandson is here, and there's a serious problem." Another pause, longer. "No, I can't explain over the phone, but trust me, you need to come. And bring those notebooks you always carry, the ones with the old notes." When she hung up, Mrs. Roberts had a determined expression. "Your grandfather is coming, but until he gets here, you need to keep an eye on that plane. Don't let them take off, understand? Do whatever it takes." "What do you mean?" "Use your head, boy. You're smart. If you have to, cause a problem, create a situation, anything to delay that takeoff, just hold them off until your grandfather arrives." Tyler nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. He left the coffee shop and went back to the boarding area, keeping to the shadows. The clock on the wall showed 15 minutes to the scheduled takeoff. The passengers were boarding. Tyler recognized some faces. There was a group of ladies, must have been 8 or 9 of them, all wearing similar clothes, probably returning from some religious excursion. He also saw a young couple with 2 small children, a man in a suit carrying a briefcase, a few other people. And then he saw his mother. Amanda Johnson was climbing the boarding stairs, beautiful in her flight attendant uniform, her black hair tied in a perfect bun, a professional smile on her face as she greeted the passengers. Tyler felt his chest tighten. His mother, the woman who had raised him alone after his father abandoned them when he was just 3 years old, the woman who worked hard at 2 jobs to give him a decent life, the woman who was about to board a plane he knew had problems. Without thinking, Tyler ran towards the boarding stairs. The staff tried to stop him, but he was faster, taking the steps 2 at a time. "Mom!" he shouted. Amanda turned around, surprised. When she saw her son running towards her, her face showed confusion and worry. "Tyler, what are you doing here? You should be at home. Mom, you can't get on this plane." He grabbed her arm. "There's something wrong. I saw smoke from the engine. The reports show problems, Mom. Please believe me." "Tyler, calm down." Amanda looked around, embarrassed by the scene. Other passengers were watching them. "Let's talk downstairs." "No, you need to come down now. This plane isn't safe." It was then that the pilot appeared, coming out of the cockpit with a look of contained fury. "This boy again?" He looked at Amanda. "Is this child your responsibility?" Yes, he is my son." Amanda was visibly embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Captain Mitchell. I'll handle this." "Handle it quickly. We're late because of this kid. First he makes up that the plane is on fire. Now he storms the boarding area." Captain Mitchell looked at Tyler with disdain. "Boy, your mother works here. Do you want her to lose her job because of you? Is that it?" Tyler felt as if he had been slapped. He had never thought of that. His mother depended on that job. If he caused trouble, if he insisted too much... "Captain, please, give me a minute." Amanda took Tyler by the arm and led him back down the stairs. When they were out of earshot, she knelt down to be at eye level with her son. "Tyler, my love, what is going on?" "Mum, I saw it." Tyler's voice came out trembling. "The smoke from the engine. It's not normal. And I found the reports. There are notes about problems being ignored, just like Grandpa always said." Amanda sighed deeply. Tyler saw the battle happening in her eyes. She wanted to believe him, he knew. But he also knew she had bills to pay, that she needed that job, that she couldn't afford to doubt the airline. "My son, your grandfather. He is a wonderful man. You know I love him. But he was also always very cautious. He saw danger in everything. And that ended up hurting him." She touched the boy's face gently. "This airplane was checked by professionals. It's fine. But Mom... Tyler, I need to work. You understand that, don't you?" There was sadness in her voice. "This job pays for our house, your school, our food. I can't just refuse a flight because you think you saw something strange. It's not thinking, I'm sure. Tyler." She looked at her watch. "I really have to go. I'll call you as soon as I land, okay? And when I get home tonight, we will talk about this. You, me, and your grandfather. But now, please, go home." "Mom, please." Tyler felt the tears starting to fall. "Just check the engine. Just ask someone to look at it again." Amanda hugged him tight. Tyler smelled her perfume, the same as always, which reminded him of home, of safety, of love. But when she pulled away, there was determination in her eyes. "Go home, Tyler. Now." Her voice was firm, using that tone that brooked no argument. "And don't cause any more trouble, please." She turned and walked back up into the airplane without looking back. Tyler stood there, frozen, watching his mother disappear through the aircraft door. He felt someone grab his arm, and when he turned, he saw Paul, the security guard. "Come on, kid, you've already caused enough trouble today." But Tyler pulled away. His mind was racing. He needed to do something. He needed to stop that takeoff. He looked around desperately. The boarding stairs were already being removed. The ground crew was starting to move away. In a few minutes, the plane would start to taxi. It was then that his eyes found his bicycle, parked near the fence. It was an old bike, a gift from his grandfather on his 10th birthday, with peeling paint and worn tires. But it still worked perfectly. Before he could think better of it, Tyler ran. He ignored Paul's shouts behind him. He jumped on the bicycle and pedaled with all his might. There was a service gate in the fence, usually locked, but he knew that at that time of day it was usually open for the fuel trucks to pass through. He was lucky. The gate was open. Without hesitating, Tyler rode furiously onto the taxiway. He could hear shouts behind him, horns, but he didn't stop. He rode straight into the middle of the runway, right into the path where he knew the airplane would have to pass. And then he stopped. He dropped his bike on the ground and stood there, arms spread wide, in the middle of the runway. The plane was starting to move. Tyler saw the moment the pilot saw him, saw the moment Captain Mitchell's eyes widened with fury. The plane stopped immediately. Sirens began to blare. Security vehicles appeared from all directions, but Tyler didn't move from his spot. His heart was pounding like a drum, his legs were trembling, but he remained there, because he knew that as long as he was on that runway, the plane would not take off. His mother would be safe, at least for now. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It's a great help for us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The airplane door was flung open violently. Captain Mitchell came down the steps almost jumping, and the staircase was quickly pulled away. His face was red with anger. He marched toward Tyler with firm steps, and the boy had to make a conscious effort not to run away. "Have you completely lost your mind?" the pilot shouted, getting close. "Get off this runway right now. Do you have any idea what you just did? You invaded a restricted area, interrupted a takeoff, put lives at risk." "Putting lives at risk is taking off with this faulty plane," Tyler shouted back, surprising even himself with his own courage. "I saw the smoke. I know there's something wrong." "Smoke, smoke, smoke!" Mitchell gestured dramatically. "There is no smoke. You're a stubborn child causing chaos out of spite." "It's not spite. Look at the turbine, just look." At that moment, several vehicles approached. Tyler recognized the airport director, Dr. Richard Thompson, a man in his 50s who always seemed far too serious. With him came a car from the airline's administration. "What on earth is going on here?" Dr. Richard got out of the car, looking from Tyler to the pilot. "Captain Mitchell, why have we stopped the takeoff?" "This boy invaded the runway." Mitchell pointed at Tyler as if he were a criminal. "He's Walter Johnson's grandson, that mechanic who was suspended. He's been making up problems with the plane since this morning, causing trouble all over the airport." Dr. Richard looked at Tyler. There was something in his eyes that the boy couldn't decipher, perhaps irritation, perhaps curiosity. "Is this true, son? Why do you think there's something wrong with the plane?" "Because I saw it, sir." Tyler pointed at the turbine. "There's dark smoke coming from there. It's not normal vapor. And I found the maintenance reports. They have notes about irregularities in the cooling system, but the plane was approved anyway." "Notes? What notes?" Dr. Richard exchanged a worried look with the other men who had arrived with him. "Let me see those reports," said one of the men from the administration car, holding out his hand. Tyler took the folded papers from inside his shirt and handed them over. The man examined them briefly, and his face turned pale. "Where did you get these?" "From the maintenance office. It's all documented, all the inspections." Tyler felt a glimmer of hope. Finally, someone seemed to be taking it seriously. "My grandfather always said they were cutting corners on safety, that they were ignoring signs of wear, and these notes prove it." "These notes prove nothing." Captain Mitchell tried to grab the papers. "They're just routine observations. Every report has that kind of thing. The plane was approved for flight." "By whom?" Dr. Richard asked, turning to the man from the administration. "Dennis, you are the maintenance supervisor. Was this plane properly inspected?" Dennis, the supervisor, a thin man in his 40s, hesitated visibly. "Yes, it was. Brian Wilson did the last inspection 2 days ago. Everything is in order." "Then why are there these handwritten notes about irregularities?" They're just reminders, things to check later, nothing that would ground the flight." "Reminders?" Tyler's voice came out high-pitched. "Tag says check cooling system. Irregular reading, how is that just a reminder?" It was at that moment that another car arrived. Tyler felt his heart leap when he saw his grandfather get out hurriedly, with Mrs. Roberts close behind him. Walter Johnson was 72 years old, his hair completely white, his face marked by time and hard work. But his eyes were still sharp, attentive to every detail. "Walter," Dr. Richard sounded surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I came because my grandson called me saying there's a serious problem." Walter walked straight over to Tyler, putting his hand on the boy's shoulder in a protective gesture. "And from what I'm seeing, he was right to call me." "Walter, with all due respect, you don't work here anymore." Captain Mitchell crossed his arms. "You don't have the authority to—" "I don't have authority," the old mechanic interrupted him. "I worked at this airport for 30 years. I performed maintenance on hundreds of airplanes. I saved lives because I knew when something was wrong. And if my grandson says he saw smoke coming from that turbine, I believe him. It's paranoia, Walter. It always was. That's why you were let go. I was let go because I made important people uncomfortable. Walter looked directly at Dennis, the supervisor. Because I pointed out that you were cutting costs where you shouldn't, that you were approving flights even with signs of trouble, that you were putting profit above safety. Those are serious accusations, Dr. Richard said, but there was uncertainty in his voice, and I can prove it. Walter opened the backpack he was carrying and pulled out several old notebooks with worn covers and yellowed pages. Here are 30 years of notes. Every inspection I did, every problem I found, every time I warned about something and was ignored, all documented with dates, aircraft numbers, everything. He opened one of the notebooks to a marked page. This airplane, registration N123AB, Flight 237. In the last 6 months, it has shown recurring signs of wear in the turbine cooling system. 3 times I requested the parts be replaced. 3 times I was told it wasn't necessary, that they were just irregular readings, that it could wait a little longer. He looked at Dennis. And now my grandson sees smoke coming from that very same turbine. Coincidence? The silence that followed was heavy. Tyler watched the expressions changing on the adults' faces. Dr. Richard seemed genuinely worried. Captain Mitchell, for the first time, showed signs of doubt. Dennis was visibly nervous, breaking out in a cold sweat. "All right," Dr. Richard finally said. "Let's check. Dennis, get Brian here now, and I want a full maintenance team on the right turbine of that airplane. A full inspection." "But sir, that will delay the flight for hours," Captain Mitchell protested. The company will survive a delay, Doctor." Richard cut him off sharply. "But it won't survive an accident. Passengers deplane now." Tyler felt his legs almost buckle with relief. His mother was going to get off. She was going to be safe. His grandfather squeezed his shoulder, and when the boy looked up, he saw silent tears in the old man's eyes. "You were brave, my grandson. Braver than many grown men I know." The passengers began to deplane, confused and complaining. Tyler saw his mother coming down the stairs, searching for him with her eyes. When their gazes met, he saw so many emotions cross her face: fear, relief, pride, confusion. Amanda ran to them and hugged Tyler so tightly she almost knocked the wind out of him. "Are you okay?" She held him back just enough to look into his eyes. "My God, Tyler, you could have been hurt. You could have—" "I had to do something, Mom." Tyler's voice was muffled against her shoulder. "I couldn't let you get on that airplane." Walter hugged them both, and they stood there, a knot of 3 people, while around them the maintenance team began working on the turbine. It didn't take long for the first shouts. "I found something," one of the mechanics shouted from the turbine. "Dr. Richard, you need to see this." Everyone moved closer. The mechanic pointed inside the turbine with a flashlight. "The cooling system is practically melted in here. It's leaking oil. That's why the smoke. If this plane had taken off—" He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. Everyone understood. "How long until complete failure?" Dr. Richard asked, his voice tense. "On the ground? Maybe a few hours, but with the stress of takeoff and flight?" The mechanic shook his head. "It would have probably failed completely during the climb. The turbine would have overheated, probably would have caught fire for real. At altitude, with passengers on board, no one said anything. It wasn't necessary. Everyone knew what would have happened." Captain Mitchell was pale. He looked at Tyler, and for the first time, there was something different in his eyes. It was no longer disdain or irritation. It was shock, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of guilt. I didn't know." His voice came out low. "I really didn't know." "You didn't want to know," Walter said without anger, just with a deep sadness. "When the boy warned you, you could have checked. It would have taken 5 minutes. But you preferred to laugh at him, belittle him, send him away. But the report said it was approved. And you saw the smoke with your own eyes." For the first time, Walter raised his voice. "You saw it and chose to ignore it, because a 12-year-old boy couldn't be right, because a retired old mechanic couldn't be right, Because believing would mean admitting that maybe, just maybe, you don't know everything. Mitchell lowered his head. Walter took a deep breath, calming himself. I've spent my life in this profession, and you know what I've learned? That arrogance kills. That thinking you know everything, that you're above everyone, that you don't need to listen to anyone, that costs lives. Today you were lucky. You had a brave boy who didn't give up, who did the impossible to be heard. How many others haven't had that luck? Dr. Richard turned to Dennis, who was visibly shaking. You have some explaining to do. Now. It was the company, Dennis stammered. They pressure us to save money, to approve flights, even with small problems. They say it's being overly cautious, that we're being too strict. Small problems? Dr. Richard picked up Walter's notebooks. You've known about this wear for 6 months. 6 months. And you did nothing. It wasn't just that. A new voice joined the conversation. It was Brian Wilson, the young mechanic who had replaced Walter. He had arrived and listened to part of the conversation. Dennis pressured me to approve flights. He said if I was too strict, I'd lose my job, that there was no budget to replace parts, that we had to make them last longer. And you went along with it? Walter looked at the young man with disappointment. You put your job above people's safety? Brian lowered his head, ashamed. I have a young daughter, bills to pay. I thought I was exaggerating, that it wasn't as serious as it seemed. I convinced myself it was okay. And it almost cost 40 lives, Walter said simply. Dr. Richard was visibly shaken. He picked up the radio and started making calls. Tyler heard words like general inspection, all flights cancelled, full investigation. Mrs. Roberts, who had been quiet until then, approached Tyler. You were very brave today, son, she said quietly. You saved many lives. Tyler looked at the plane, at the damaged turbine, at all those passengers who would have been on that flight. Among them, the group of ladies he had recognized earlier. One of them approached. She was a lady of about 70, with white hair and a rosary in her hands. Young man, she said, her voice trembling, I am Sister Margaret. I'm returning from New York with my group of church sisters. There are 9 of us, all over 65. She touched Tyler's arm. If that plane had crashed, none of us would be here. You saved us. Other people started to gather around. The couple with the 2 children, the man in the suit, other passengers, everyone wanting to thank the boy who prevented a tragedy. But Tyler could only think of his mother. Amanda was by his side, still hugging him, and he realized she was crying. I'm sorry, Mom, he said. I'm sorry for not listening to you before. No. She shook her head, wiping away her tears. I'm the one who's sorry. You were right, and I didn't want to believe you. I was scared of losing my job, scared of the consequences. And because of that fear, I almost... Her voice broke. It's all right now, dear. Walter hugged her too. You're safe. Everyone is safe. The next few hours were a blur. Inspectors arrived, journalists showed up. The story of the boy who ran onto the runway to save a plane began to spread. Tyler gave interviews, answered questions, repeated his story dozens of times. But the most important part came days later. Tyler was at home, trying to focus on his math homework, when they heard the doorbell. When he opened the door, he was surprised to see Captain Mitchell out of uniform, looking tired and older than he remembered. May I come in? The pilot asked. Amanda, who was in the kitchen, came to see who it was. Her expression grew tense when she saw Mitchell, but she nodded, allowing him to enter. The 3 of them sat in the small living room. There was an uncomfortable silence before Mitchell finally spoke. I came to apologize. He looked directly at Tyler. Truly, not just to be polite or because it's the right thing to do, but because I realized how wrong I was, how my arrogance almost cost lives. Including my mother's life, Tyler said, his voice harder than he intended. Including your mother's life, Mitchell confirmed, and 39 other people. People with families, dreams, whole lives ahead of them. You laughed at me. Tyler remembered the pain he felt when the pilot dismissed him. You treated me like I was nothing, like I didn't know anything. I know. And it was unforgivable. Mitchell took a deep breath. You know, I've been flying for 20 years. thousands of flight hours. And somewhere along the way, I started to think I knew everything, that I was above everyone else. I stopped listening, I stopped paying attention, I stopped being humble. Why? Amanda asked. Why did you become like that? Mitchell was silent for a moment, as if he was really thinking about the answer. I think it was ego. When you're in command of an airplane, when dozens of lives depend on you, there's a power in that. And that power can go to your head. You start to think you're invincible, infallible. He looked at his own hands, and that illusion almost killed a lot of people. What's going to happen now? Tyler asked. I've been suspended. They're going to investigate. They're going to check all my previous flights, see if I ignored other warning signs. I'll probably lose my license. Mitchell said this without self-pity, just accepting the consequences. And honestly, I think it's fair. I don't deserve to be in command of an airplane if I can't listen when someone points out a problem. What about Dennis and Brian? Dennis was fired. Brian was too, but Dr. Richard said he'll try to help him find another job if he takes a refresher course. Mitchell paused. The airline is under a full investigation. They found the problem was systemic, not just on that one plane. There was pressure from the top to cut costs, to approve flights even with problems. Your grandfather was right all along. Tyler thought of his grandfather, of how Walter had been treated, of how he was pushed out for doing his job correctly. He always was, Tyler said simply. I know, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to fix what I did wrong. Mitchell stood up. I just wanted you all to know that I understood. I understood what we almost caused. I understood the value of humility. I understood that the most important voices are often the ones we try to silence. After Mitchell left, Amanda hugged Tyler. Are you all right? I am. And it was true. Tyler felt at peace. He seemed sincere. He really did. Amanda agreed. People can change when they realize their mistakes. In the following days, more details came to light. The investigation revealed that the airline had a systematic scheme to cut costs. It wasn't bad faith from specific people, but a corporate culture that valued profit above safety. Parts were used beyond their recommended time. Maintenance checks were superficial. Reports were falsified. Walter was called as a special consultant for the investigation. His notebooks, decades of meticulous observations, became crucial evidence. Everything he had warned about, everything that had been ignored, was now coming to light. A week after the incident, Tyler was at the airport again. This time he wasn't alone. A press conference had been called. Journalists from across the country were present. Dr. Richard was at the microphone, but he called Tyler and Walter to stand by his side. Today marks a new beginning for this airport and for regional aviation in our state, Dr. Richard announced. The events of last week showed us that we failed. We failed to listen. We failed to prioritize safety. We failed those who trusted in us. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. But they also showed us that there is hope. They showed us that courage can come from anywhere, from anyone, regardless of age. They showed us that doing the right thing, even when it's hard, is always worth it. Dr. Richard turned to Tyler. This young man, Tyler Johnson, just 12 years old, saved 40 lives. He did what experienced adults fail to do, saw what others refused to see, had the courage to act when others remained silent. Applause filled the hangar. Tyler felt his face grow warm with embarrassment. He wasn't used to so much attention. And this man, Dr. Richard pointed to Walter, has spent his life ensuring our safety. He was pushed aside for doing his job too well, for caring too much, for refusing to compromise fundamental values. More applause. Walter kept his humble expression, but Tyler saw pride shining in his eyes. Therefore, I am honored to announce that Walter Johnson is returning to his position, not as a regular mechanic, but as the Director of Aviation Safety for this airport. He will have full authority over all safety matters, the power to veto any flight he deems unsafe, and the resources to implement the highest standards that exist. The crowd applauded again. Walter looked genuinely surprised and moved. Furthermore, Dr. Richard continued, we are creating the Safety Guardians program. Anyone, regardless of position or age, who observes a safety problem will have a direct channel to report it. All observations will be investigated. No one will be ignored or belittled again. Dr. Richard picked up a framed certificate. And Tyler Johnson, you are being honored as the first honorary guardian of aviation safety. This certificate recognizes your courage, your determination, and your refusal to be silenced when lives were at risk. Tyler accepted the certificate with trembling hands. It was beautiful, with gold letters and the airport's seal. But more than the certificate, it was what it represented, the recognition that he had made a difference, that his actions mattered. After the press conference, when the journalists had left and the hangar was quiet again, Tyler walked over to the airplane. Flight 237 was still there, but now completely taken apart. Mechanics were working on it, replacing not just the faulty turbine, but doing a complete overhaul. One of them was Brian Wilson. When he saw Tyler, the young mechanic hesitated, then approached. "Hi," he said awkwardly. "Hi. I wanted to thank you." Brian looked at the ground. "I know it seems strange, since because of me there was almost a tragedy, but you saved me too. You saved me from carrying the weight of having caused that for the rest of my life." Tyler didn't know what to say. Part of him was still angry at Brian, at the man who had turned a blind eye to danger, but another part understood. Brian was young, he had pressures, he had fears. He wasn't bad, just weak. "Are you going to learn from this?" Tyler finally asked. "I will," Brian said with conviction. "Your grandfather took me back, on the condition that I do everything his way. No shortcuts, no outside pressures, just the correct work, and that's exactly what I'm going to do." "Then it's all right." Brian smiled with relief and went back to work. Tyler kept watching the airplane for a few more minutes, thinking about everything that had happened. Thinking about something? Walter's voice pulled him from his thoughts. His grandfather approached, putting a hand on his grandson's shoulder. "Just thinking about how fast things have changed." "They sure have," Walter said, looking at the airplane. "But you know what hasn't changed. You. You're still that brave boy who refuses to accept injustice, who fights for what's right." "I learned from you, Grandpa." "And I learned from you too, my grandson," Walter smiled. "You reminded me why I chose this profession. It's not about machines or techniques or procedures. It's about people. It's about making sure every person who gets on a plane arrives safely at their destination." They stood there side by side, grandfather and grandson, looking at the airplane that had almost cost so many lives, but which now, thanks to a boy's courage, would become a symbol of change. Weeks passed. The investigation continued, revealing more and more problems in the system. Other regional airlines were investigated. Changes were implemented on a national level. The case of Flight 237 became a landmark in American aviation. Tyler went back to his school routine, but things were different now. Classmates treated him with a new respect. Teachers greeted him in the hallways. But he tried to keep his feet on the ground, to remember that he was just a boy who did what he thought was right. One day, during recess, a classmate approached him. It was Lily, a shy girl who always sat in the back of the class. "Tyler," she hesitated, "can I ask you a question?" "Sure." How did you find the courage?" She looked around as if afraid of being overheard. "When everyone says you're wrong, when no one believes you, how do you not give up?" Tyler thought about the question. It was something he had wondered himself. "I think it's because I knew I was right. And I knew that if I gave up, people I love could get hurt." He looked at Lily. "Why do you ask?" Lily bit her lip, clearly debating whether she should speak. "There's a girl on my street. I think she's being mistreated at home. I see her with bruises, always scared. But when I tried to tell my mom, she said it's none of our business, that it's someone else's family problems." Tyler felt his stomach tighten. He knew situations like that were complicated. "You need to insist, Lily. Talk to another adult, to the school principal, to someone who can help. Don't give up just because the first person didn't listen." "But what if I'm wrong? What if I cause trouble for her family for no reason?" "And what if you're right and you do nothing?" Tyler countered. "It's better to try to help and be wrong than to do nothing and later find out you could have saved someone." Lily nodded slowly, seeming to absorb the words. "Thank you, Tyler." She walked away, and Tyler realized something important. What had happened with the airplane wasn't just about him. It was about setting an example, showing that doing the right thing pays off, inspiring others to be brave too. That evening during dinner, Amanda shared some news. "The airline has undergone a complete restructuring," she said, serving the rice. "They changed the entire board, implemented new safety protocols, and you know the best part? They're creating a fund to ensure there's always money for proper maintenance, no cost cutting." "That's great, daughter," Walter commented, "but words are easy. Let's see if they stick to it in practice." "They will," Amanda was sure. "Dr. Richard is taking this very seriously. He told me he never wants to go through the shame of nearly having an accident due to negligence again." "And you, Mum?" Tyler asked. "How are you feeling about all this?" Amanda paused, thoughtful. "At first, I was scared, afraid of losing my job, afraid of backlash for being your mother. But you know what I realized? That my son taught me something important." She touched Tyler's face. "He taught me that a job isn't worth having if it means turning a blind eye to danger. That safety is priceless. That doing the right thing even when it's scary is always worth it. And if you had lost your job, I would have found another," she said with conviction. "But I wouldn't have gotten another life. None of us would have. And that, thanks to you, didn't have to happen." Tyler felt a tightness in his chest, but it was a good feeling. It was love, pride, gratitude for having a family that supported him, that believed in him. A month after the incident, Captain Mitchell sought out Tyler again. This time he had a proposal. "I'm starting an educational campaign," he explained, sitting in the same room at the Johnsons' house, "about the importance of listening to all voices, of not letting ego or arrogance compromise safety. I wanted to know if you and your grandfather would agree to participate, to tell your stories in schools, companies, other airports." "Why us?" Walter asked. "Because you lived it. You know what it's like to be ignored, to be underestimated. And you know what it takes to have the courage to keep going anyway." Mitchell looked at both of them. "I can talk about my mistakes, about what I learned, but you can talk about doing the right thing. It's a more powerful message." Tyler looked at his grandfather, who gave a slight nod. "We'll do it," Tyler said, "but on one condition." "What is it?" "That the campaign isn't just about aviation. That it's about listening to people in general, especially those who are usually ignored. Children, the elderly, anyone who has something important to say." Mitchell smiled, a genuine smile Tyler had never seen on him before. "That's a condition I gladly accept." And so it began. Tyler and Walter, along with Mitchell, started visiting schools. They told their stories, answered questions, inspired people. Tyler talked about being only 12 years old and standing up to adults who didn't want to listen. Walter talked about decades of experience being dismissed. Mitchell talked about arrogance nearly costing lives. In every place they visited, they saw eyes lighting up with understanding. Teachers started listening more to their students. Managers started valuing the experience of older employees. Pilots started checking every alert, no matter where it came from. The group of ladies who were on Flight 237, led by Sister Margaret, also joined the campaign. They talked about what it means to have your life spared, about gratitude, about the importance of recognizing unlikely heroes. During one of these visits to a school in the countryside of Michigan, a girl of about 10 raised her hand. "Tyler, were you scared?" "I was," he answered honestly. "Very scared. Scared of being wrong, scared of causing trouble, scared of hurting my mother. But you did it anyway?" "I did, because the fear of something bad happening to the people I love was greater than any other fear." The girl nodded, satisfied with the answer. But after the talk, she approached Tyler again. "There's a teacher at our school," she said quietly. "She yells at us a lot. Sometimes she even gives us little shoves. I told my parents, but they said the teacher knows what she's doing, that children need discipline. But it's not normal, is it? It's not right." Tyler felt anger rising, but he took a deep breath, remembering to act wisely. "No, it's not normal, and you need to keep speaking up. Talk to the school administration, with other teachers, with other parents. Don't give up until someone listens and does something about it. And if no one believes me, someone will." Walter joined the conversation. There's always someone willing to listen, to believe, to help. You just need to keep looking. The girl left feeling more confident. Tyler and Walter exchanged a look. They knew they had planted a seed, given courage to someone who needed it. Months passed. The story of Flight 237 became known nationally. Changes were implemented not only in aviation, but in many areas. Companies began creating open communication channels. Schools implemented active listening programs. Hospitals created protocols to listen to family concerns. It was as if the courage of one boy had started a wave of change. One Saturday, 6 months after the incident, Tyler was at the airport again. But this time, there was no emergency. He was there for the inaugural flight of the revamped system, the first flight since all the changes had been implemented. The plane, completely overhauled and with all new systems, shone in the hangar. A small ceremony was being held. Local authorities, airline representatives, employees, all were present. Dr. Richard was at the microphone. This flight represents a new beginning. Every bolt on this plane has been checked. Every system has been tested. And more importantly, every voice that pointed out any detail, no matter how small, was heard and taken seriously. He paused, looking at Tyler. And we want the person who started this whole change to be our guest of honor on the inaugural flight. Tyler felt all eyes turn to him. Amanda, beside him, squeezed his hand encouragingly. Me? He asked, surprised. You? Dr. Richard smiled. Along with your grandfather, your mother, and all those who were originally on Flight 237 and wished to board. It's a symbolic flight, just a trip around the region to show that we are back, safer than ever. Tyler looked at the plane, the same one that had almost crashed, now completely renewed. A second chance, just like so many people had received. I'll go, he said. The boarding was emotional. Of the 40 original passengers, 32 had agreed to be on the inaugural flight. The 9 ladies from Sister Margaret's group, all there. The couple with the children, now a little older. The man in the suit. Everyone had come back. And in command was, surprisingly, Captain Mitchell. He had gone through a rigorous re-evaluation, therapy, additional training, and he had been cleared to fly again, but with a difference. He was now humble, attentive, willing to listen. When Tyler entered the cockpit to greet him before the flight, Mitchell stood up and extended his hand. Thank you, he said simply, for saving me too, for giving me the chance to learn, to change, to be better. Tyler shook his hand. Everyone deserves a second chance when they truly learn from their mistakes. The flight was smooth. Tyler sat next to his grandfather, with Amanda in the aisle seat. As the plane took off smoothly, he looked out the window. Down below, the airport grew smaller. The people looked like ants. But Tyler knew that every single one of those ants mattered. Every voice was important. Every concern deserved to be heard. Walter squeezed his shoulder. Proud of you, my grandson. Proud of you too, Grandpa, for never giving up, even when everyone said you were wrong. You know what I learned in my life? Walter looked out the window too. That being right is less important than doing the right thing. I could have been wrong about that plane, but it was my duty to check. It was my duty to insist. It was my duty not to stay silent when I saw danger, even if in the end I found out it was paranoia. But it wasn't. No. But even if it had been, it would have been worth trying. Tyler thought about that. It was a powerful lesson. Being responsible doesn't mean always being right. It means always trying to do the right thing. When the plane landed, smoothly, perfectly, a round of applause echoed through the cabin. Everyone had returned safely. A flight that months ago would have ended in tragedy was now a symbol of hope. As they disembarked, there was a crowd waiting. Journalists, family members, onlookers. But Tyler barely noticed. His eyes found Mrs. Roberts, who was there with a huge cake that read, "Congratulations, safety guardians." "I thought you deserved a celebration," she said, her eyes shining. The celebration was simple but sincere. People sharing stories, laughing, giving thanks. Tyler moved among everyone, listening to accounts of how their lives had changed. Sister Margaret called him aside. "Tyler, my child, I want to show you something." She took a photo from her purse. "This is my great-granddaughter, Emma. She was born 3 weeks ago." Tyler looked at the picture of a tiny baby, sleeping peacefully. "She's beautiful. If that plane had crashed, I would never have met her." Tears streamed down the elderly lady's wrinkled face. "I would never have held her. I would never have seen her smile. You gave me that, Tyler. You gave me the chance to meet my great-granddaughter." Tyler felt a lump in his throat. This was it. It wasn't about heroism or recognition. It was about moments like this. About a grandmother meeting her great-granddaughter. About families being made whole. About lives that continued. The party went on until late. Stories were told. Laughter was shared. Bonds were strengthened. When it finally ended and people began to leave, Tyler stayed behind, helping to clean up. He was picking up disposable cups when he felt a presence. He turned and saw a man around 40 years old, whom he didn't recognize. "Tyler Johnson?" the man asked. "Yes, that's me." "My name is Michael Harris. I'm an investigative journalist." He held out a card. "I've been following your case and the investigation that followed, and I discovered something I think you should know." Tyler took the card, curious. "What is it?" The negligence with the maintenance wasn't just about cost-cutting. Michael looked around, as if making sure no one else was listening. There was a bigger scheme. Parts were being replaced with counterfeit, cheaper versions. The price difference was going into the pockets of some company executives. Tyler felt anger. It wasn't just incompetence or pressure for profit. It was pure greed, people getting rich at the cost of lives. "Do you have proof?" "I do, and I'll be publishing it soon. But I thought you deserved to know first. After all, you're the one who exposed it all." "What will happen to those people? If I do my job right, they'll face justice." Michael smiled with determination. "But I need your help. You and your grandfather know the technical details. You can confirm the authenticity of the parts. You can testify about the history of problems." "We'll do whatever is necessary," Tyler said without hesitation. "Great. I'll be in touch soon." Michael shook the boy's hand. "You are brave, Tyler. Keep it up." After the journalist left, Tyler told everything to Walter and Amanda. The three of them fell silent for a moment, processing the information. "So it's not over," Amanda finally said. "No," Walter agreed, "but we will finish it. We will make sure everyone responsible pays, that this kind of thing never happens again." And so they did. In the following weeks, they worked with Michael, providing documents, testimonies, technical analyses. The story was published and caused a national scandal. Executives were arrested. Illegal suppliers were shut down. The system was cleaned from top to bottom. But with that came threats. Powerful people don't like being exposed. Tyler started receiving anonymous messages, warnings to stop, to keep quiet. Amanda was terrified. "Maybe we should stop," she said one night, after receiving another threatening call. "We've done our part, Tyler. You don't need to risk yourself any further." Tyler understood her fear, but he also knew that backing down now would mean letting bad people win. "Mum, if I stop now, they win, and other people could die in the future." He held her hands. "I know you're scared. I am too, but we need to be strong." Walter joined the conversation. "He's right, Amanda, and we're not alone. Michael has contacts. He knows how to protect himself. The police are investigating. We have support." Amanda took a deep breath, fighting back her tears and fears. "All right, but promise me you'll be careful, that you won't take unnecessary risks." "We promise." And they kept that promise. They were careful, prudent, but they did not back down. They continued providing information, testifying, fighting for justice. The trial, when it finally happened, was long and complicated. Tyler had to testify, tell his story once again, this time to a courtroom. It was frightening, seeing the defendants looking at him with anger, hearing lawyers trying to discredit him for being just a child. But he stood firm. He told the facts, presented the evidence, didn't let them intimidate him. In the end, justice was served. The corrupt executives were convicted. The illegal suppliers were permanently shut down. Heavy fines were imposed, and most importantly, laws were changed to ensure stricter oversight across all of regional aviation. 1 year after the incident of Flight 237, Tyler was back at the airport. But this time it was for a special occasion. The airport was being renamed. Dr. Richard was at the microphone, with Tyler and Walter by his side. "It is with great pride that I announce the new name of this airport," he said, pointing to a covered sign. "Walter Johnson Regional Airport, in honor of the man who dedicated his life to aviation safety, who never compromised his values, who taught his grandson to have the same courage and integrity." The sign was unveiled. Walter's name in large golden letters shone under the sun. The old mechanic had tears in his eyes. I don't know what to say," his voice faltered. "I just did my job. I just tried to do the right thing." "And by doing the right thing, you saved countless lives," Dr. Richard said. "This airport will always remember that safety comes first, that every voice matters, that courage can come from anywhere." The crowd applauded. Tyler looked at his grandfather and saw not just pride, but peace. Walter had fought so hard, for so long, without recognition, and now finally his work was valued, his contribution recognized. After the ceremony, as people dispersed, Tyler and Walter stood looking at the sign. "How do you feel, Grandpa?" "Fulfilled," Walter smiled. "But you know what makes me the proudest? It's not having my name up there. It's knowing that you, my grandson, will continue this legacy. That you will keep fighting for what's right, no matter how difficult it is." "I always will, Grandpa. You taught me well." Amanda joined them, hugging them both. "My men," she said proudly. "My heroes." The three stood there, a family, looking at the airport that had been the stage for so much drama, so much fear, but also so much growth and change. Growth. Tyler thought about everything that had happened. It started with a boy seeing smoke from an engine, and it ended with systemic changes, lives saved, and justice served. All because he had the courage to not stay silent, to insist even when no one believed him. It was a lesson he would carry forever, that one person's voice, no matter how young or dismissed, can change the world, that doing the right thing is worth any risk, that courage isn't the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. And as he looked at that airport, now safer than ever with his grandfather's name shining on the facade, Tyler Johnson, at just 13 years old, knew his life had purpose. He knew he would keep fighting, keep standing up for what is right, keep being a voice for those who cannot speak. Because in the end, that's what it was all about protecting lives, about making a difference, about never, ever staying silent in the face of danger. And that was a mission he would fulfill for the rest of his life. End of story. And you, what did you think of this story? Did Tyler do the right thing by insisting even when no one believed him? Have you ever been in a situation where you needed courage to stand up for what you thought was right? Tell us in the comments. We love reading about your experiences, and if this story moved you, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories.